My husband keeps bothering me about chores and work, and it's really getting on my nerves. Whenever I ask for something, he says mean things to me. I just wanted us to go through life together happily as a married couple. But if things stay like this, what's the point of being married? Just when I felt like there was no hope, my husband's behavior suddenly changed. I started to think maybe we could finally have the perfect married life I've always wanted. But I was wrong. I shouldn't have believed him. My name is Michelle Taylor, and I'm 43 years old. I met Edward a few years ago while he was on a business trip, and now we live together. We used to have a long-distance relationship where we had to fly to see each other because we were both so busy with work. But after dating for a few years, we finally got married. I'm going to make you happy for the rest of our lives, Edward said when he proposed to me. I never thought I could marry such a wonderful man. Back then, he was really friendly, and it seemed like a lot of women liked him. It might sound weird, but I felt really lucky that he chose me. Because of the distance, I moved to where he lived, and we started our life together as a married couple. But I couldn't just quit my job, so I found another company to work for. Why? Well, because Edward wasn't earning enough. Either his company didn't pay well, or he hadn't been promoted. I wasn't sure, but his salary was definitely too low. If I stopped working, we wouldn't have enough money to live on. At first, Edward wanted me to stay at home. But as we face reality, he stopped talking about it. Even now, years later, it's the same. We both worked hard to make ends meet. But then something happened that changed everything. It was because of Edward's actions. He was really nice when we first got married. But as time went on, he started showing his true colors. It started with little things. Like, he wouldn't clean up after eating. Hey, can you clear the table when you're done? Oh yeah, sorry. He'd do it when I asked, but then he'd forget again a few days later. Can you take care of the dishes? Oh yeah. We had talked about sharing household chores before we got married, but once we were married, Edward hardly did any chores. He always had an excuse. I thought maybe he was just tired, so I didn't bug him about it. But if I'm honest, Edward finished work earlier than me, and it seemed like he had it pretty easy. He even said his job was easy. Meanwhile, my job was demanding and kept me busy almost every day. Dealing with Edward and managing work along with household chores was really tough. Couldn't he pitch in a bit? I reached my limit and decided to talk seriously with Edward. Hey, about the chores, could you maybe help out a bit more? I'm really exhausted. Suddenly, Edward's expression changed. You could see right away that he was annoyed. I get it, he said, his voice full of anger. Although I didn't bring it up then, I couldn't help but wonder why he was so defensive. After that day, Edward's behavior changed a lot. I knew why. I had asked him to help with the chores. Thinking about it now, maybe Edward just sees me as a convenient maid. One day, after finishing work as usual, I came home to the smell of alcohol in the air. Holding back my disgust, I went to the living room. When I opened the door, I found Edward lying on the couch surrounded by empty beer cans. I figured he probably didn't go to work. Hey, what's going on? Are you alright? I asked, approaching my seemingly drunk husband. But Edward, opening his shut eyes, glared at me. Ah, so annoying, he grumbled. Annoying? His response was clearly disdainful, and he shut his eyes again. But seeing him so lost in alcohol, I started to worry. Did he have a breakdown without me noticing? Did he turn to alcohol to escape? Hey, what's with all the alcohol? I asked. Edward snapped. I told you it's none of your business. Before I could say more, he got up and started yelling at me, slurring his words. He threw insults and stormed off to his room. I was just trying to show concern. Why was I being treated like this? Alone in the living room, I cleaned up the beer cans and snack wrappers Edward left behind. Then one day, laundry and dishes were scattered around, some broken, including my favorites. Given what happened, I knew Edward did it on purpose. I wanted to confront him, but he wasn't home, though he should have been done with work. Maybe he was out drinking. He trashed the place and left. It's so mean. I called Edward, but he didn't answer. I texted, and he replied quickly. I'm not coming home tonight. No explanation. What should I do? Should I just go along with Edward's behavior? Is this my fault? It feels hopeless. I thought I did the right thing. What could I have done differently? Lost in thought, I cleaned up the mess. Later, I noticed a scratch on the floor, a reminder of this day. The next day, as he promised, Edward came back, smelling of alcohol and unsteady on his feet. What were you doing? I was really worried, I said, frustrated that he didn't even greet me. "What I do is none of your business," he replied. "We're married, so of course it's my business." His attitude made me even more annoyed. Pressing him further, Edward gave me an irritated look and went to his room without a word. Oh dear, a sigh escaped me involuntarily. Did I really marry someone with such a difficult personality? Where did I go wrong? Tears started flowing as I thought about it. But I wasn't giving up. If I'm patient and keep facing my husband, maybe one day he'll understand how I feel. He might spend weekends with me or even help with chores. I'm not asking for much. Right now, I just want him to be in a good mood. With that hope, I tried to talk to Edward. "How was work today?" "Tough day. Dinner tonight is meat and potatoes." But he didn't respond well. Ignoring me became routine. He'd click his tongue and give annoyed looks. Fixing our marriage seemed impossible with Edward acting like this. Lately, he wouldn't even touch the meals I made. Eventually, I started to rethink our relationship. Should we stay married like this? Would it be better to leave him alone? The more I thought, the more negative I became. I made one last plea to Edward. "Please don't ignore me when I talk to you." Surprisingly, he seemed to understand and apologize. I'm sorry. I was surprised. I never expected him to apologize. Then he said, "I'll help with the housework from now on." "Really?" "Yeah, I've been thoughtless until now," he said, gently patting my head. It felt like it had been years. It seemed suspicious, considering his past behavior. It's natural to be skeptical, but I wanted to believe Edward had changed for the better, and I let myself hope. Afterward, he truly started helping around the house. Laundry, cooking, cleaning, sometimes everything was done before I got home. I never knew Edward could cook. Sitting down in front of my beaming husband, we shared meals together. He also put more effort into his job. He used to avoid overtime, but now he mentioned studying for certifications and often stayed late. "How's work going lately?" I asked. "It's going well," Edward replied with a smile. Our time together increased, feeling like the honeymoon phase again. But one thing bothered me. Despite claiming overtime, there was no extra pay. Since Edward never did overtime before, it was puzzling. "Aren't you getting paid for overtime?" I asked. He said, "Oh, it's for independent study. I did request overtime pay." "Oh, really?" I'd like him to claim it for the extra money, but I'm not familiar with his company's policies. For now, I decided to trust Edward's decision. However, I would later regret fully accepting his changes. One day, my business trip was confirmed. I would be away from home for work. Before, my business trips were shorter, but this time it's for a whole week. Excitement, anxiety, and loneliness all grew within me. When I told Bob about the trip, his reaction surprised me. "A business trip? How many days?" Usually he's not very interested when I mention business trips and never asks how long I'll be away. But this time, he showed interest and even asked about the duration. It seems Bob is genuinely trying to prioritize our home life. With that thought, I felt grateful to have married him. "I think it's going to be a week from the week after next." "Oh, okay, the week after next then." Bob started checking his calendar on his smartphone. I'm not sure about the details, but he seems busier than before. I wondered if he's become busier at work or perhaps more relied upon. "Got it. Be careful, okay?" "Yeah, thanks." We had these conversations, and on the morning of the trip, I explained various household things to Bob. Thinking he had finally understood, I briefed him on the discount store, ironing techniques, and where to find daily necessities to make things easier for him. "Well, I'm off now. Call me if anything comes up." "All right, thank you." With that, I headed for my business trip. That evening, when I returned to my hotel after work, I received an unusual message from Bob. "How's work going?" "It's going well." After some casual chit-chat, I sent him a goodnight message and set my phone aside. I couldn't help but wonder if everything was okay with Bob. Was he feeling lonely all by himself? With these thoughts, I continued preparing for work. About a week later, I finished my tasks and started heading home. Luckily, I finished a day earlier than planned. If no last-minute work comes up, I'll have tomorrow off. Feeling happy on my way back, I thought about cooking dinner and stopped by the supermarket. What should I cook? Curry, stew. Then I realized we might be out of oil, and it dawned on me that I hadn't informed Bob about my early return. Would he be surprised if I just showed up? I texted Bob to check if we had oil at home and to let him know that my business trip had ended early and I was on my way home. However, even after circling the supermarket, there was no reply from Bob. Was he still working? Doing overtime? Deciding not to disturb him further, I picked up a bottle of oil, thinking it's always good to have some extra. While heading home after shopping, Bob called. "Hey, are you coming home now? Where are you?" For some reason, he sounded panicked. Was something wrong? Yeah, I'm in the apartment elevator right now." Bob hung up without saying anything else. "What's happening?" Worried, I hurried to our apartment. "I'm home, Edward. Are you okay?" I called out, but there was no answer. Just as I was taking off my shoes and heading inside, my husband rushed out of the living room and collapsed in front of me. "Are you okay? It's hard to breathe. Call an ambulance," he said, grabbing my hand. I dialed 911 quickly. Within minutes, the ambulance arrived. I let the paramedics in, and they checked on my husband. "Will he be okay? What's going to happen?" While watching and worrying, I noticed something strange. There were a pair of women's shoes I didn't recognize. Obviously, they weren't the paramedics or mine. I felt a tightness in my chest. Glancing at the living room window, I saw women's lingerie hanging there. Could it be? Is Edward having an affair? Looking back, he did seem very panicked when I called. Maybe he was trying to hide it. I cautiously scanned the house, pretending to prepare for my husband's hospital visit to avoid suspicion. Living room, restroom, kitchen, no sign of her. If her shoes are here, she must be around, unless she escaped through a window. Finally, in the bathroom, I see a light on and a silhouette. I open the door and look at the bathtub. I can't believe what's in front of me. I wish I had been mistaken about the shoes and the lingerie. I head back to the front door. The conversation with the paramedics goes like this. "You're his family, right? Please come with us." "I'm sorry, there's been a mistake." The paramedics sound shocked. Edward too lets out a surprised sound. Ignoring them, I bring the woman from the bathroom to the front door. "This woman is family, she'll come with us." "Wait a minute," the woman gets flustered. Edward seems shocked too, and suddenly sits up with force. "You." The paramedics quickly try to calm down Edward, but he seems fine. "What do you think?" "Well, he doesn't seem to be in critical condition." In the end, it's decided that Edward doesn't need immediate medical attention, but if he feels unwell again, he should go to the hospital. The room falls silent after the paramedics leave. So, what's going on here? I sit both Edward and the woman down and demand an explanation. At first, they look uncomfortable and remain silent. But as I continue to stare silently, they seem to give in. Edward speaks up. "I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. She's a colleague from work. We're close, but there's nothing going on." Following Edward, the colleague chimes in. "That's right. We were just having a meeting here. There's nothing going on, I promise. Now, can you explain this? Do you need to take a bath for a meeting? Do you need to dry your underwear too?" I gesture to the underwear hanging in the living room. The two exchange uneasy glances, appearing troubled. I see through their facade. "If you have time to come up with a strange excuse, just tell me the truth." I press them. Edward looks up, his expression heavy with guilt, and finally spills everything. "I'm really sorry. I know sorry isn't enough. So, you've been lying about working late?" It turns out Edward had developed a close relationship with his colleague Kate. After we got married, he started cheating because I kept nagging him about household chores. But when Kate praised men who do chores, Edward started working late to meet her. I noticed the smug look on Kate's face. That explains the lack of overtime pay and his supposed certifications. It was all a facade. "I understand what you're thinking. Let's just end it with a divorce," I declared. "Please go ahead and be with her." I was so fed up that divorce seemed like the only solution. It wasn't a threat. The deception I had endured had become unbearable. But Edward wouldn't hear of it. "Divorce? That's not the answer," he insisted. "If you had told me you were coming home, none of this would have happened." "Yeah, it's not fair to come home unannounced." They both chimed in. Had I been deceived by my husband's facade all this time? The realization left me feeling pathetic. "Ma'am, look, Edward really regrets it." Kate tried to calm me down. "You don't truly want a divorce, do you? You're just blaming me for his cheating," she accused. "Enough is enough. Let's get a divorce," I shouted, and they both recoiled. I hoped they would reflect on their actions and words. Afterward, I hired a lawyer and began preparing for divorce proceedings to claim my share of the assets. Edward kept calling, and even his parents reached out. They were understanding, and upon hearing my side, they apologized and agreed to support me in the divorce. Eventually, after likely talking to Edward, he appeared exhausted during the divorce proceedings and agreed to it without resistance. I reported Edward and Kate's affair to their company. Following the divorce, John and Kate, both employed at the same company, were quickly exposed for their affair. They faced ostracism from colleagues and seemed to lose their standing within the company. Additionally, they became the subject of gossip among talkative older women, and even clients began discussing it. Unable to endure the toxic environment, they resigned from their jobs. I'm uncertain if they married, but they likely faced financial strain. If they did marry, I can imagine them arguing over money. I promptly moved to a new, more comfortable and affordable apartment. Reflecting, I recall choosing the old place to accommodate John's preferences. As I return home, I exhale a sigh of relief, grateful that chapter of my life has closed. Since the divorce, I've dedicated myself more to work, leading to significant improvements in my performance and a subsequent raise. While initially made in anger, the decision to divorce now brings me a sense of liberation. With this in mind, I enjoy my favorite tea, preparing for what tomorrow may bring.
That day, I think I was really tired because as soon as I put my daughter, Nia, to bed, I went to my room and fell asleep right away. Later, I woke up suddenly because I heard Nicholas crying. I checked the time on my phone, and it was 1:00 a.m. I felt relieved that I had managed to get a short nap. Feeling exhausted, I got up to comfort Nia. Then, I heard someone shouting, "Shut up, be quiet." It took me a moment to figure out where the voice was coming from. I thought it might be my mother-in-law, Jamie, yelling at me from her room. I responded, "I'm coming to calm her down now," and opened the door to the living room. There, right in front of me, was Jamie, glaring at Nia in the crib. Then suddenly, she slapped Nia's face and said, "That's enough." Shocked, I yelled louder than ever, "What are you doing?" Jamie seemed surprised for a moment and then panicked, saying, "Why didn't you calm her down sooner? This baby is too noisy." I hurried to the crib and picked up Nia to shield her from Jamie. I couldn't believe it. She hit a baby. My name is Candice, and I'm a 28-year-old housewife. I used to work in an office, but now I'm on maternity leave, taking care of the house and our baby. My husband, Miles, and I moved in with my mother-in-law, Jamie, about a year ago. Miles has a demanding job and isn't home much. He was worried about leaving me alone while I was pregnant and felt sorry for Jamie since my father-in-law passed away 2 years ago. So we decided to live with her. At first, everything was okay, but Jamie's true colors started to show, and honestly, it's been tough. "Candy, you're so slow with the housework, and can't you cook better food?" Jamie kept picking on me every chance she got. When Willis, her husband, was alive, visiting my in-laws' house was fine, and I didn't really dislike Jamie. But after Willis passed away and we moved in together, Jamie became incredibly selfish and rude. She'd constantly insult me, saying things like, "Hurry up, you're useless and slow, even ugly." The last part was just cruel and had nothing to do with chores. Being pregnant, it's natural for me to be slower. But Jamie doesn't seem to understand or care. She just wants to harass me. Since Miles, my husband, is mostly away on business trips and doesn't get home until late, I spend most days with Jamie. I kept hoping things would get better once the baby was born. Surely even Jamie, as tough as she is, would soften up around her grandchild. I clung desperately to that hope. I talked to Miles about it on WhatsApp, trying not to bother him too much at work. He always replies with, "I'm sorry, I wish I could be there for you." And he does scold Jamie when they meet. Knowing Miles supports me gives me some comfort, even when I have to endure Jamie's criticism for not doing chores well while pregnant. After safely giving birth to a healthy baby girl, Miles, bless him, managed to arrange time off from work for the birth. He left early and rushed to the hospital. Just before I delivered, as he held our newborn daughter, "She's really cute, like an angel." He looked so happy and said, "I'm thrilled to have a child with the man I love." I messaged Jamie on WhatsApp to share the news of our baby girl's arrival, hoping she'd visit since we lived together. But Jamie didn't come to the hospital, nor did she reply. I started to worry if she wasn't interested in her granddaughter, Could the harassment continue even now? Just as I feared, the door to my hospital room opened. Candice, how are you feeling? Oh, what precious baby. She's a girl, right? She's going to be beautiful. My sister-in-law, Leela, came to visit. Leela is incredibly kind and cheerful, and she's always been good to me. I've always cherished my relationship with her. Since Leela is already married and has children, I had decided to seek her advice on parenting. What'd you name her? Miles and I decided on Nia. Oh, that's a lovely name. Wait, hasn't Mom arrived? No, I reached out to her, but she ignored my message. Ah, I see. She can be difficult sometimes, can't she? Unpredictable and lacking common sense. Yes, indeed. Leela is direct, and I've always valued that about her. She once told me, if you ever struggle living with Mom, don't hesitate to talk to me. That offer was a lifesaver. So whenever things got tough, I would honestly vent to Leela. She understood Jamie's challenging personality, so she refrained from scolding Jamie based on what I shared, knowing Jamie would take it out on me. That's why she only intervened when absolutely necessary. At that time, simply being able to share my frustrations was enough to ease my stress. Little did I know, things would become even more challenging after Nicola was born. Jamie, I'm home. When I returned from the hospital with Nicola, Jamie didn't acknowledge her presence at all. Instead, she ordered me to clean right away. I couldn't believe it. It was as if she was pretending Nicola didn't even exist. Despite feeling upset, I placed Nicola in her crib and started cleaning. But within 5 minutes, Jamie called out angrily, "Candy, get over here." Yes, what is it? That baby won't stop crying. Do something about it. I was stunned. Jamie referred to Nicola as that baby, as if she were a nuisance, and ordered me to silence her cries. Jamie continued to mistreat Nicola, demanding that I change her diaper and complaining about the crib being in the way. Each time Jamie yelled, Nicola cried louder in fear, which only angered Jamie more. It created a very tense and uncomfortable atmosphere for Nicola and me. Jamie, her name is Nicola. Could you please call her by her name? Shut up. Don't tell me what to do. You're her mother, so it's your responsibility to take care of her and make sure I'm comfortable. Look, she's crying again. Nicola started crying because Jamie had yelled just after I had put her to bed. I had to interrupt my chores to comfort Nicola, knowing Jamie would be upset if the housework was delayed. After soothing Nicola and returning to my chores, Jamie complained, "This crib is in the way, taking up so much space," and kicked it. The crib shook, and Nicola woke up crying once again. "What are you doing, Jamie?" I questioned. "Shut up. It's your fault for putting such a big thing here," she snapped back. "But you were the one who told us to move the bed to the living room because it's noisy when she cries in our room at night," I reminded her. "Are you complaining to me now? Stop arguing and soothe that noisy child," she ordered. Calling her that noisy child is really unkind. I had no choice but to carry out my chores while holding Nicola. Balancing housework and childcare without upsetting Jamie was incredibly challenging, and I was becoming increasingly exhausted. If I focused too much on childcare, I'd be scolded for being slow with housework, and if I prioritized chores, I'd be criticized for not parenting properly. Miles had been away on a business trip for about 2 months and wasn't home to support me. I tried reaching out to him through WhatsApp and phone calls, but he was always busy and couldn't talk for long. He apologized many times, saying, "I'm really sorry for the tough times," but I felt guilty for making him apologize when he was working so hard for our family. At the hospital, the doctor examined Nicola and reassured me that while her face was red, there were no signs of bruises or injuries, which eased my worries. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "What happened? Did you accidentally drop her?" the doctor inquired. I recounted the incident to the doctor. Just then, Layla walked into the room. "Candice, is Nicola all right?" she asked with concern. "Oh, Leela!" I exclaimed. In my frantic state, I had called Leela while in the ambulance. with Miles away on a business trip and unable to rush back immediately. I reached out to Leela despite it being the middle of the night. Leela proceeded to inform the doctor about Jamie's actions towards Nicola. The doctor was visibly shocked, and Leela trembled with anger. The next day, I returned home with Leela. After some hesitation, I entered the house alone. Jamie acted as if nothing had happened and continued to harass me as usual. "You're late. Hurry up and make breakfast," she demanded. "You forgot to take out the trash because you came home late. You really can't keep up with the housework," she criticized. "Enough already. Did you forget what happened yesterday? You hit a 3-month-old baby, remember?" I confronted Jamie, her face flushed with anger. Why should I apologize? That child was the one being noisy. I just slapped her because she wouldn't listen. It's a form of discipline. I thought she wouldn't quiet down otherwise. Jamie defended herself. "That's not discipline, it's violence." "Enough. She's just a baby. Just do your chores already," I responded, feeling exasperated. "You don't seem to regret it at all. You don't even think you did anything wrong." "Leela, please come in," I called out to Leela. She entered the living room, and I couldn't believe what had happened. "Mom, what were you thinking? I can't believe you would do something like that," Leela exclaimed. "No, that's, Jamie was flustered by Leela's sudden intervention. "Mom, you do realize that what you did is legally punishable, right?" Jamie's face paled at Leela's words. "Leela, you're not seriously considering suing your own mother, are you?" she pleaded. "I won't be the one suing. Candice will." "I'll simply act as her lawyer," Leela responded firmly. "But wait, it was just a form of discipline," Jamie tried to justify. "Who would see hitting a baby as discipline? This is assault," I interjected, firm in my stance. No matter how hard Jamie tried to rationalize her actions, they could never be excused. "I will definitely pursue legal action against you. Be prepared," I informed Jamie. Jamie began to cry softly. "I'm sorry, Candice. I always lose control when I'm angry and end up regretting it later. I've always felt guilty about how I treated you and Nina. I truly am sorry for what happened. Why did I raise my hand to her? I always wanted a boy as the eldest grandchild. It was Willis' wish too. It might be an old-fashioned idea, but we always hoped for a boy to carry on the family line. And when a girl was born instead, I was happy about having a granddaughter, but also felt like I failed to fulfill a promise to Willis. Every time I got angry, I couldn't control myself. I'm truly sorry," Jamie confessed through her tears. "Please, Candice, help me change. I'll do anything," Jamie pleaded, offering a heartfelt apology. "Jamie, please try to calm down. Let's have a proper conversation," I urged, hoping to diffuse the tension. "No, I've done something unforgivable. No amount of apologies will ever be enough." Jamie continued to apologize fervently. My heart wavered, and I almost forgave her. But then Leela intervened. "Don't be fooled, Candice. Mom always puts on this act of deep remorse when she's caught in a corner just to escape criticism," Leela explained. "What? She did the same thing when Dad found out about her affair. He fell for her act and forgave her, but her tears dried up immediately afterward. This is probably just another performance, right? You can't fool me," Leela declared, causing Jamie to falter. "What are you implying, Leela?" Upon closer inspection, Jamie's tears, which had been flowing moments ago, had already ceased. It was likely fake crying. "Jamie, I can't forgive you anymore. How twisted must you be to try to worm your way out of what you've done?" I exclaimed. "Wait a minute. I'm not trying to escape anything," Jamie protested. Okay, I understand. But we've already decided to take legal action," I stated firmly. Jamie's face reddened with anger. "Don't play games with me. Why should I be subjected to this treatment by a daughter-in-law like you? How dare you?" Just then, we heard the sound of the house key turning. "Candice, is Nicola safe?" It was Miles. "Why are you here?" I exclaimed in surprise. I had only contacted him on WhatsApp and thought he couldn't come because he was on a business trip. I had called him several times in the middle of the night. Yet here he was, having driven straight here since 3 o'clock a.m. and arriving this morning. I didn't expect Miles to be there too. Mom, stop it. I've heard about your mistreatment of Candice, and I've warned you about it multiple times, haven't I? And now you've gone and hurt my precious Nicola. I can't forgive you for this, Mom, Miles said firmly. Are you blaming me too? How cruel. After all I did raising you and Leela, Jamie retorted defensively. What are you talking about? You were hardly ever there for us. It was always Aunt who took care of us. Our memories are filled with the meals Aunt cooked. Not you, Mom, Miles replied, his tone tinged with frustration. Just stop it. Plus, I think the doctor already reported it yesterday, Miles added. Huh. The hospital knows Mom hurt her, so it's only a matter of time before the police get involved. Leela chimed in. No, wait. Are you okay with your mother getting arrested? Jamie pleaded, panic evident in her voice. I'd rather not have someone who hurts a 3-month-old baby around, no matter what you say, Mom. You don't have anyone on your side now, Miles stated firmly. Jamie finally seemed to grasp the severity of her situation. Her face drained of color as she slumped in defeat. Soon after, the police arrived, and Jamie was taken into custody. As a first-time offender, she received a suspended sentence. However, Miles and Leela decided to cut ties with her and obtained restraining orders against her. Miles moved out of the in-laws' house with me and Nicola and rented an apartment. During our search for a new place, we temporarily stayed with Leela, which was immensely helpful. Candice, I'm truly sorry for everything. I'll take parental leave if necessary. I'll switch departments or even jobs to ensure your and Nicola's safety, Miles assured me. His current workplace had some issues with its environment, making it challenging for him to secure parental leave. Consequently, he resigned and found employment elsewhere. Now he returns home on time and actively helps with Nicola and household chores. We reside in a high-rise near Leela's family, often gathering for meals or enjoying barbecues together. As for Jamie, I'm not sure about her current situation, but according to neighbors, she has become completely isolated since her arrest and rarely ventures outside. It seems that her prideful nature cannot handle being associated with such reprehensible actions. However, her whereabouts no longer concern me, and since she doesn't know our new address, the chances of encountering her unexpectedly are slim. My focus now is on living happily and supporting each other as a family with Miles, Nicola, and Leela's family. Get out! My mother-in-law, Catherine's harsh voice pierced the air. When my husband was transferred abroad, she kicked me and my daughter out of the house. With no place to go, I ended up at the park, holding my 2-year-old daughter, feeling lost and unsure of what to do next. Suddenly, police officers surrounded us. Please come with us, they said. Soaked in the rain and shivering from the cold, I followed them to the police station, where I found an unexpected person waiting for me. I'm Emma, turning 35 this year. I met my husband Bob at work, and after a year of dating, we got married. I quit my job when we tied the knot, and 2 years ago, our daughter Lily was born. Right now, we all live together with my mother-in-law, Catherine. We used to rent, but after Catherine's husband passed and her niece started acting up, we decided to buy a new apartment and live together. We thought about getting a house, but with Catherine's knee issues, we figured it'd be smarter to live where it's easy to get around. Buying an apartment was cheaper and had an elevator, which was a big help. Catherine liked the idea too, so we put money down and got a 35-year loan. Bob's job doesn't move us around much since we bought the place, but he still travels for work about once a week. With a 2-year-old, his trips stress me out. At first, Catherine pitched in with childcare, but now she's not much help. She leaves dishes dirty and utensils unwashed, which piles up extra work for me. When I ask her to help, she promises to do better but doesn't follow through. Oddly enough, she cleans up when Bob's around, and I just noticed that recently. At first, I didn't think much of it when Catherine occasionally rinsed the dishes, but now I see things differently. I suspect she's deliberately making things difficult for me, like when she offers to pick up things from the store, and then conveniently mentions afterward that she actually needed something. This happens a lot. I used to think Catherine's knee problems made moving hard for her, so I wanted to help out as much as possible. But now, my eagerness to assist is wearing thin. I considered talking to Bob about it, but he's already stressed from work, and I didn't want to add to his worries. Catherine's behavior started not long after we moved in together, and it's been going on for years. When I mentioned it to a friend, she said, "Sounds like she's bullying you. Why not talk to Bob? He might be able to help." But if I bring it up with Bob, Catherine, who doesn't have any other family, might end up in a care facility. So I thought maybe it's best to just tough it out. However, something happened one day that made me reconsider. That day, I had arranged to drop off Lily at my parents' house. They'd always loved having her over and often suggested I stay the night too. But I always worried about leaving Catherine alone. After a quick chat with my parents, I headed back to our apartment where Catherine was waiting. But when I got there, I realized I had forgotten the keys. At first, I panicked a bit, but then I remembered Catherine was home. I tried buzzing her through the intercom, but there was no answer. I waited outside, thinking she might have gone out, but she didn't return. As it got darker, I decided to follow another resident into the building. I was sure Catherine wouldn't be out so late, but when I buzzed our apartment again, there was still no response. I waited a while longer, but still nothing. Finally, I heard a faint sound from inside, confirming Catherine was home. I kept buzzing the intercom, but she wouldn't answer. Feeling defeated, I booked a room at a nearby motel for the night, planning to sort things out when Bob got back from his trip. I got locked out. I explained to Bob when he asked what happened. He was understandably upset, but Catherine just brushed it off, blaming her hearing and joking about getting old. Relieved to be back inside, I grabbed my keys and went to pick up Lily from my parents' house. They offered their support, saying I could always come back if things got too tough. Their comforting words brought tears to my eyes, but I quickly composed myself before heading home with Lily. For a while, things seemed okay with Catherine. Then, unexpectedly, Bob's international transfer was confirmed. A permanent move, not just a business trip. We just bought a place, and now this international assignment. What should we do? Bob asked me. I hesitated, considering the stress it might bring to Lily, but ultimately decided it was best for us to stay in the US. Soon after, Bob had to leave for Europe. Although he was concerned, work kept him occupied, leaving me, Lily, and Catherine to navigate life together. Living with Catherine took a turn for the worse once Bob left for Europe, just as I expected. Her attitude shifted drastically. On a stormy day, when it was unsafe to go outside, Catherine blindsided me with a shocking request. "Now that Bob's away, wouldn't it be best if you and Lily found somewhere else to live?" she said bluntly. "Excuse me? What are you saying?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I'd prefer to have the place to myself. I can't relax with strangers around. So if you could leave as soon as possible, that would be great," she replied, showing no remorse. I was stunned by Catherine's nerve. Despite not being blood-related, I had always treated her like family, doing my best to make our living situation comfortable. But to her, it seemed we were just unwanted guests. As I contemplated packing up and returning to my parents' house, Catherine's next words cut deep. "Why are you still here? Just leave already," she demanded, showing no mercy. Before I knew it, Lily and I were standing outside our own home, dressed only for indoors, as Catherine slammed the door shut behind us. No matter how hard I knocked, she refused to open it. Lost and stranded, I took Lily to a nearby park for shelter from the pouring rain. Without my wallet or phone, which were inside the house, I felt utterly helpless, unsure of our next move. Exhausted and freezing, I tried to keep us warm as we huddled together. With nightfall approaching and the cold setting in, I feared we might fall ill. Desperate for help, I considered the long walk to my parents' house, despite the distance. As I weighed our options, I noticed two faint lights in the distance. Squinting through the rain, I realized they were police officers approaching. Before I could decide what to do, one of them called out to me. "Are you Emma? And is this little one Lily?" the officer asked, catching me off guard with his knowledge of our names. I nodded weakly, confirming our identities. "Please come with us to the station," the officer requested, and I couldn't help but wonder why they were taking us there. Lily and I obediently got into the patrol car, grateful for the large towels the officers provided to shield us from the cold and rain. As we shivered in the backseat, I couldn't shake off my curiosity. "How did you know where to find us?" I asked, hoping for some answers. "We'll explain everything once we're back at the station," they assured me. Exhausted, I soon drifted off to sleep, only to awaken later to find ourselves at the police station. Following the officers inside, I was taken aback to see Catherine and my uncle waiting for us. "Uncle, what are you doing here?" I asked in surprise. "Bob contacted me. He suspected you might be having trouble with his mom, especially since he's overseas," my uncle explained, shedding some light on the situation. "He wanted me to keep an eye on things for him," my uncle explained. Apparently, Bob had discussed this issue with him before, expressing his concern about not being able to be there himself while he was overseas. My uncle had spotted us in the rain earlier that day and had considered taking us in himself. However, he found Catherine's actions extreme, so he decided to report it to the police. That's why the officers knew where to find us and came to our rescue. Catherine had also been summoned to the police station, where she sat glaring at me, seemingly unaware of the reason for her presence. "Why do I have to be here? My knee is acting up, you know. If Bob were here, none of this would be happening," Catherine argued. Little did she know that this entire situation had unfolded because of Bob reaching out to my uncle for help. During discussions with the police, it became evident that the situation might have legal implications. As a result, I was advised to consider hiring an attorney to navigate the complexities ahead. An attorney? That's an overreaction. I just locked the door, that's all. I didn't do anything else, Catherine protested. "Do you even realize what you've done? You threw Emma and a little child out in torrential rain. That's not something forgivable," my uncle defended us, emphasizing the severity of Catherine's actions and asserting my rightful ownership of the house. "That's impossible. Bob is the head of the household. He's the rightful owner. Now that he's not here, it should be mine," Catherine insisted, misunderstanding the ownership status. In truth, my uncle, who works in real estate, had facilitated a great deal on a condo for us, and Bob had recommended putting it under my name. Following my uncle's guidance, I decided to seek legal advice. The lawyer explained that evicting Catherine would be challenging and suggested considering placement in a care facility. I immediately called Bob to update him on the situation. He hadn't anticipated the severity of the issue and expressed his desire to return from Japan to address it properly, considering placing Catherine in a facility. Unaware of the unfolding developments, Catherine, despite being at the police station, nonchalantly snacked on crackers. Unable to return home with Catherine, I sought refuge at my parents' house until Bob's return. With a week before his arrival, I had time to reflect on our options. If Bob wouldn't support me, then divorce seemed the only option, I lamented, regretting my delay in seeking advice. A week later, Bob returned from Europe, and I moved back home from my parents' place. However, his stay was brief as he needed to go back to Europe soon. With limited time in Japan, we had to discuss our next steps. I heard some things from Emma's uncle. Is all of that true? Bob inquired as soon as we were together. Catherine adamantly denied any wrongdoing, insisting it was all lies and accusing me of plotting against her. Surprisingly, Bob seemed inclined to consider Catherine's perspective. "Do you have any evidence to prove Emma's plotting something?" Bob asked, seeking clarity. "Evidence? Of course not. Emma, do you have any evidence?" I admitted I hadn't been able to keep track of things due to my busy work schedule. Uncertain of whom to believe, I handed Bob a voice recorder I had with me. "What's this?" Bob questioned as I handed it to him. I explained that it contained recordings of Catherine's harsh words and her eviction of me from the house. As Bob listened to the recordings, he heard Catherine's disparaging remarks about me, questioning why he even married me. Catherine quickly began to defend herself upon hearing the playback. This is taken out of context. Everyone has their moments, right? I was just frustrated at that time. But it was just this once. Catherine attempted to downplay her actions, but the voice recorder played a relentless stream of verbal abuse, revealing countless instances of mistreatment, some not even captured on the device. Bob's hand trembled with tension and anger as he held the recorder, while Catherine appeared guilt-ridden. "Mom, what is this about?" Bob demanded an explanation, but Catherine remained silent. "If you won't answer, then I can only assume this is all true. If so, I need to prioritize Emma and Lily's safety. You understand that, right?" Bob's anger was palpable, a side of him I had never seen before. Catherine, seemingly realizing the severity of the situation, cowered in fear, unable to respond. In the ensuing discussions before Bob's return to Europe, I made it clear that I could no longer live with Catherine, especially with Lily in the picture. Bob seemed to agree, leaning towards the idea of placing Catherine in a care facility. However, Catherine vehemently opposed the suggestion, complicating matters further. Regardless, I decided to sell the house, so you can't stay here anymore. If you don't want to go to the facility, you'll need to find another place, Bob announced firmly. "How dare you decide this on your own? I won't allow you to sell the house." Catherine protested vehemently, but the decision was made. Lily and I had already chosen to move to Europe, as Bob regretted not being more present for his family and was determined to make amends moving forward. Although I had reservations about moving abroad, knowing that Bob would be with us provided some comfort. Plus, I thought it would be beneficial for Lily, who was only 2, to immerse herself in a new environment and practice her communication skills in Europe. Therefore, selling the condo, which still had a mortgage, was the only viable option. Leaving it as it was would burden Catherine with the mortgage payments, which she couldn't afford on her fixed income. Considering her future prospects, it was essential for someone to be available to support her. Despite our best efforts, Catherine refused to move into a care facility voluntarily, so we had no choice but to arrange for her admission forcibly. "I'm sorry, but I have to head back to Europe. Could you take care of any necessary procedures here?" Bob asked before departing. With assistance from friends and family, I managed to complete the process of admitting Catherine into the facility. The staff there kept me informed about her condition, but it seemed she was struggling. While it would be understandable if she were simply feeling down, she was reportedly making things difficult for the staff and other residents. Before leaving for Europe, I visited Catherine to check on her well-being. However, she lashed out at me, accusing me of imprisoning her in the facility. She also vented her frustrations to the staff, criticizing the food, accommodations, and other residents. Despite apologizing to the staff for her behavior, they reassured me, saying they were accustomed to handling such situations. Despite the challenges and the mistreatment I had endured from Catherine during our time living together, I couldn't help but feel anxious as I embarked on my journey to Europe. Upon arriving in Paris, Bob greeted me at the airport, and we made our way to the apartment we had rented. While they say rents in Paris are steep compared to Texas, Bob's company provides a housing allowance, which allowed us to find a spacious and affordable place. Our neighbors in the building have been incredibly welcoming, despite my limited fluency in French. Just yesterday, one neighbor shared some wine and cheese with me, and in return, I offered them some homemade mac and cheese. In the meantime, I'm gradually picking up French alongside my daughter Lily, recognizing the limitations of self-study. I've also enrolled in a language school, where I've met other Americans new to France and formed some great friendships. Back in the States, my worries about Catherine often overshadowed my enjoyment of outings with friends. But here in Paris, I can savor leisurely lunches and fully embrace the city's charm. My main concern now is Lily, who is still too young for kindergarten, Typically, children here start kindergarten at 5, so I'm hopeful she'll pick up enough French by then. Thankfully, Lily seems to be adapting quickly. As Lily grows older and approaches preschool age, I'm considering re-entering the workforce. While Bob supports me staying at home, living in Paris has sparked a desire for new opportunities. Witnessing the ambition and confidence of people here has inspired me. I've even befriended a waitress at a nearby cafe who hinted at a potential job opportunity there. The cafe is popular among both Americans and locals learning English, presenting a promising avenue for me. Despite the challenges ahead, our move to France has strengthened the bond between Bob and me. I feel more empowered to express my feelings, and I'm confident that we'll face whatever comes our way as a family. Right now, I've never felt happier in my life.